Some of the tools that I used for this project: a tape measure, a screwdriver to get your plastic hardware off your head rail on your blind, cording for the blinds, you can buy that at Amazon, scissors to cut your cord, a marker to mark the measurements that you're going to be needing on your cord, a drill and a couple of drill bits. I used a needle and thread to sew my ends of my cord together, my old to my new cord. Your cord, you may be able to use a lighter and melt them together. The kind of cord that I had would not melt together, so I just sewed them together and then put a little piece of tape over it so it would move smoothly through the holes. And then I also used a paper clip, and I hope that focuses, and just made a little hook in the end. You could use a crochet hook or something like that if you have one. You might have to hook your cording to adjust it, so that I had to use. And then a pair of needle nose pliers in case you need to pull on the cord and it's hard to pull. Here are a couple of my cords from the first 2 windows I did, and if you notice, what happened, I was pulling on my blinds and they would go up and down, but they were crooked and off, was because the cord frayed. And this particular cord has a very thin piece that's still together. That makes it easier if you still got your cord in there to re-string your blinds. This other side over here, get that in focus, just has one little fray in it. But that's what happened, your cord frays and breaks, and then you have to put new cord in. So the measurements you need to take are from the bottom of this head rail down to the bottom of the glass part of the window. Mine happens to be 50 3/4 of an inch. You need that measurement twice, because your cord is going to run down here through the bottom railing and then back up to the head rail again. So you need 2 measurements up and down. Then you need a measurement in between the 2 rails where your cord's going to be running, and mine is 18 inches. I realize it's a little hard to see with my lighting, but to get your blind out of there, you need to have your blind in the up position, and then grab your unlock items, I don't know what they're called, and run them up and down until you can hear each one of those locks lift. Then make sure to put your blind back up in the up position. If you don't have it in the up position, when you're taking your blind in and out, you may bend the blinds. I've done that myself, so you want to make sure it's in the up position. You're ready to take the blind out now. The next thing we need to do is they have this nice plastic ring here. On 2 of my windows that's broken off, so you'll have to grab a part of a stump of it. If yours is broken, pull that out. And then try to keep the back of this blind level, or you scratch your glass. You pull toward the glass. Sometimes it doesn't pull, so you have to stick your finger in. Sometimes it doesn't pull out with that. So I've got a screwdriver, and I'm just going to put it in there and gently pull it away from the side mechanism, and it's sliding on a bar at the top, and your blind comes out. The little plastic ring that you pull first, the screw that this is hooked on, the screw would go in this way, and you'll be sliding it off of that screw. At the other end, you're sliding this direction, and then this mechanism goes in with the mechanism on the side of the window that makes sure blind go up and down. So that's really important. First you slide towards you. First you slide towards you on the end with the plastic. And then at this end, you're sliding that way to get it off of this piece and out of the mechanism. So the next thing I need to do is figure how long I need my cord. And I said each side was 50 3/4, so I'm just gonna round it up to 51. So 51 and 51, 51 for this side, 51 for this side. And I said it was 18 in between the two runs of cord. So that's 120 inches. Then we're going to have to add additional inches. We're going to take off this back railing, or this head rail. And the first thing you're going to do, we've got this little loop here. This is the part of the blind that is facing the exterior of your house. So we're going to make sure that that's laid on the counter. When we're rewinding this later and pulling it up, we want it to work the correct direction of the blinds. So I always work from this direction. So we need to take this little end cap off, and to do that, there's a little push button here, and you push on that with your screwdriver, and this little end cap comes off. This is what's going to go on the bottom when we put it back on. This slides off. Put that aside somewhere so it doesn't get messed up. Then there is a metal bar in here that comes out, and that is what rolls with this mechanism over here. It rolls it around to make the blind go up and down, so set that aside also. And then your blind, you can loosen it up a little bit. Doesn't have to be tight at this point. But our measurement from the bottom of the rail to the bottom of the head rail, we had that measurement, and that was 50 3/4 on my window. Yours would be different, and I rounded it to 51. And then we have cord that needs to come up through a hole here and be put in a stopper on this winder. So if I measure, it's about 2 inches across here that the string is going to have to pull, and about 1 inch up. So that's an additional 3 inches. So 3 inches on this side and 3 inches on this side. So that's an additional 6 inches. And then we'll have to tie knots. And the knots will take about 1.5 inches of cord. We're going to tie 2 knots at the end, and that'll take about 1.5 inches of cord on each side. So another 3 inches. So that is 129 inches total for my blind. And then I'm going to add some extra just in case I need it to make my blind seat perfectly in the window. So 129, I'm going to measure a piece of cord, 100, and I'm going to give myself 10 inches, 11 inches. I'm going to do 140 inches of cord. So I'll measure that and get my cord cut. We're going to take these 3 little locks that hold your cord in. We need all of them off because it locks the cord here, here, and here in the bottom. And this particular one has a little plastic piece in the middle, and there's a locked position, which it's in now, and the directions at Pella say to turn that with a small screwdriver to unlock it, and then gently pry these out. You don't want to break them because you need them. And it is harder if the lock's in them to get them out. These two do not have locks on them. They've fallen out, or they've never put them in the first place. But I don't want to break this. So I pulled this out, and after you pull it out, There are 2 slots on each side, and this just comes out of here. Oh, you gotta get the lock out on these. I forgot because my others did not have locks on them that I did. So to get the lock out, I guess that just locks the cord in there. Pull it and pull that cord out. So I have my lock, place those aside because you're not going to need them again. Here is this little bitty piece of plastic that locks, supposedly locks the cord in there. Mine locked really well without them, so that's your choice. Whoops, I lost that one, if you put them in or not. But take all 3 of those off and put those aside. They're very important. Okay, next thing we need to do, you need to take your length of string, however long yours is. Mine's 140 inches for my window. And we need to measure the halfway point. So, here's the halfway point. And at the halfway point, you need to mark it. And I do it with an indelible marker so that it doesn't come off. It's never going to show. This point is going to be right here on your window when you're done. Hopefully, doing it this way and marking them, your shade won't be off and you won't have to adjust much. Then, the next thing we need to do is with those little plastic pieces, they're going to take up about 1/4 of an inch on each side of this when we put them back in and hold it, and then we're going to be locking it in here also. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure, oops, center of the hole to center of the hole, and mine is about 9 1/8 inch. So I'm going to add about 1/4 of an inch, let's see, to that. So let me think here. Okay, I'm going to measure 9. I just want a little play in this, so where the plastic takes it up, it holds it. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to mark the same distance because I want a little play in that, because that's going to lay across the bottom of our shade. Then I'm going to fold up my center mark again, and I want, these are the same, so I'm going to go here, and so that they're even and lay straight, I'm going to mark both those exactly the same. So now I have marks for my center and both those holes. Then the next thing we need to do is from this hole up to the bottom of our top rail. I said I had 51 inches, so I need to measure from, here's my center, I need to measure from this side up 51 inches and then add another inch for play at the bottom of my, shade. And that 51 inches I'm going to have where it just shows right here when I start wrapping my cord on the winders. So I'll measure these off camera and mark them. My total was 51 inches tall on my window, so I'm going to add an inch, so I'm going to measure it and mark it at 52 inches. I'm going to do 1 inch of additional play. So now I've marked at my 52 inch mark, and here I'm going to measure this again. So here's my center for my center hole, my 2 marks for my outer holes, and then I have already marked one side of this at 52 inches for my window, and I'm going to mark the other one. When I did this the first 2 times on the windows, figuring out how to do this, I didn't mark, and then I had to put it in the window, adjust my height. So this is going to make it easier from the start. It's about right, but I'm going to measure twice, make sure these holes line up, my center lined up. Oops. Check that out again. I'm gonna make it way easier. Yep, perfect. Okay, next thing we need to do is we need to have a little slack in here, and we're going to go down here and pull our cord off the roller bar. Oops. And you're going to do that on both sides. And once you've done that, you'll see that this is knotted in here. And I know there's a way that this probably comes apart at the factory where they can get the knot in there. I could not figure out how to do it. So the next step is going to be what worked for me. If you know how to take this mechanism apart, go for it, but I'm going to show you what I did and how I did it to get my string to be in there tight. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clip this cord off. Don't need that anymore. On both sides. Clip it off as short as you can. And don't let this cord get anywhere because we're going to use that to help string. And the two size drill bits I used a 3/32 drill bit for my first drill hole, and then a 5/32. Basically, I wanted it about the same size as my cord, so you may need a different drill bit size depending on what cord you get. The original cord was a little thinner, so the first hole is the size of your cord. The second hole is where we're going to have to pull through a knot. So we've got the 5/32 so we can pull our knot through. So to do that, let's see, am I in the picture? I want to make sure it's where you can see what I'm doing. The first drill is the small bit, and I'm going to get as close to this black part as I can. I've tried wrapping the thread in here to hold it. Nothing has worked for me but this. So to do it, I get close to the black but not right on it. I drill it. One hole, and then make sure you don't get into your rail. And I'm going to drill straight through. And it's kind of hard to do this while I'm on the camera, but I'm going to try to drill straight through. I'm trying to be careful so I don't get, there we go. And I've drilled a hole from there all the way to here. Next thing I'm going to do is change my drill bit out to the bigger size drill bit. And then one of the holes, doesn't matter which one, you're going to enlarge. So I'm going to do this one. So now we have the 5/32 hole on that side and I think 3/32 on this side. Do that on the other roller bar too. Okay, next up is to join your ends of your new cord to your old cord, and I'm gonna just barely singe the ends. I've already tried mine to singe them and hold them together that way. My new cord will not singe to this one. So what I have to do is I take a needle and thread, try to make the littlest knot possible, and I just stitch them together, go up the middle, And you want it to be secure because you don't want it to break halfway down when you're winding them through, or then you have to go on YouTube and find a video on how to rewind or put the cords back on. So I need my needle nose pliers for this. And I pull it through, and I try to keep it nice and even. And then I go back through a couple times. There, you might have a better way to do this. I just want to make sure that my cords don't come apart when I'm working, because I've had that happen and it's not fun. Trying to make the smallest knot possible so that it slides through all the holes on the mini blinds easily. Feels pretty smooth and it's pretty solid, but if you want to apply just a small amount of painter's tape around here, you could do that. Sometimes it gives it a rough edge, but sometimes it makes it slide better. So I just don't want any hard edges, and then roll it real good to make it as smooth as possible. And there, we've got a nice tight join in our two cords, and you could start from this end and go around. I just start from this end. This is the end where the mechanism is that works. It makes it work. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull it through until we get our center marking. So to do that, you can lift this bottom slat and you start gently pulling through. And here comes our new cord. And sometimes it's kind of hard to get it in this small hole up here. But there we go. And the first slat has a little plastic safety keeper on it, and it's kind of hard to get it through there sometimes. But we got it. And then the tape kind of, I think it would be better if you could join your cords. The tape kind of holds it up sometimes. So just go gently through here so you don't hurt your slats. I think I'm going to take that tape off, so I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to take that tape off, see if it works better. Okay, now I've got the tape off. I'm going to pull it taut again. I'm going to start going through. Yeah, it's going through better without the tape. And you don't want to hurry it through the holes. Just be gentle, pull through. Now we've got our old and our new, and we're going to keep going until we find our center mark. Okay, here's the first mark that goes over here. So, keep going. Okay, here's my center mark, and here is my mark for this end. And under, let me make sure you're still in focus. So, we're still in focus, and we're going to keep pulling this. Up here. I'm going to pull from this end for a little bit. So I've totally got the join down and through everything on this side. Now we're down to the bottom and we need to find our marks that go across the bottom. Oops. Okay, here's 2 marks and the third one. This one, we're going to have to latch in down here, and there's usually a little slat across this. You just lift it up. You've got the ladder in here that each one of the slats go in. This is just excess ladder, so that's going to go to the side. This loop, you're going to pull it down, make a loop on it, and stick it through that hole at the bottom. And it's really hard to do it when you're trying to film and stay out of the way of the camera, so sorry. Okay, we've got that loop down here with our mark on it. I'm going to pull my ladder taut and lay it back in there. Then we need to pull this out, and we need to put this little latch in there. And so I'm going to push it in, both sides, snaps in there. And we want that black mark centered in there. And then I'm going to pull my blind out a little bit. Pull the cord that's going to go this opposite direction. Pull it. Our center mark needs to be right in there. Pull my ladder over to keep it taut and push that in the hole. Now you've got your first part locked. Then I'll pull it over to the center hole, see if that is in focus. Do the same thing there. Oops. Okay. Here's our little ladder. Pull that taut. And there's my center again. So I'm going to take and put that down in the hole. Push that down in the hole. Do the same thing again. And put this on here. Here's our black mark. So I'm going to pull up tight, center that in the middle. Sorry. Center that in the middle there. Okay. Pull my ladder down so it's nice and tight. I don't have loose ladder on the bottom. Make sure my black mark's still in the middle. It is. And pop that in there. Got 2 of them done. Lay my ladder down in there, and then do that on the 3rd hole. So, put that down. Here's where I need to make my loop. Put that down through the hole. There's my black mark. Through here, pull this and center that black mark in this locking mechanism. Pull your ladder tight and push that through. Don't bend your slats while you do it. It's really hard to do this when you're not in the right angle when you're filming. Well, I'll pop that one in off camera. Okay, I popped the third one through. Make sure your ladders are tucked in down here. You can always do that later. And that slat just lays back there. Once you've got that done, tip up your ladder and straighten your string out if you need to, and then you're going to start pulling on this cord to pull your excess through. And here comes my new cord coming through. I have to work it a little bit where our join is. Pull too tight because you don't want that join to break. So I'm working up the last. Here is my join right here. I'm working up the last of this side. Tip that up. Let me look. Okay. I'm going to try to get that join through that top slat and the bottom of this. And pull that on up. And take your slack out. Okay. So now you have the new cord all the way from one side to the other. And here's our join, and we can cut this now. We've got new cord through the whole thing. Okay, I am ready to roll up my extra cord. I've got this side already finished, and I'm ready to work on the other side. So to do that, I've got my cords where I joined them. I'm going to cut that. Get rid of that. Then I'm going to look for that mark we made for our length. And here's my mark that I made for the length. And that's going to be right at the bottom of the head rail. That's my goal where it's supposed to be. So at about 3 inches, I'm going to need to tie some knots after I get this run through the hole. So I'm going to roll it around so I have the small hole on top. Oops, I need to cut a few of my sewing strings off so I can get it through the hole easier. And I take it through the hole. And let's see if I can wind it through. If I can't wind it through, I can use that little paper clip with a hook or a crochet hook. So we can see the black dot, and we put that on our 0 mark. And from this distance that you have here and down to the rail where the black dot needs to sit on my particular window is about 3 inches. So I'm going to want my knot to be right up here. So I'm going to tie my first knot almost 3 inches. I think. So now I'm at 2, so I'm going to have to adjust that till I get it. And you just have to work with it, and it's probably hard to see that when I've got it the camera this way, but I'm filming by myself, so I really don't know any other way to do it. But we want our blinds to be even, and if we start out pretty even, then it won't be so hard in the end. Okay, so that's about where I want my first knot. And then I go ahead and tie a second knot, just as a backup, and I want it closer than that. So I have 2 knots, and I usually wet those. Wet them with my mouth. So we've got our black dot that's going to line up at the bottom of our rail, and our 2 knots to hold it. And then clip it off. And then make sure it's in focus. Okay, yep. Then we're going to pull this through and grab it. Pull those knots through, and now you can't see your string. So our knot is pulled through. It's good and tight in there. And I'm going to get most of the kinks out of this that I've worked in it. Now we're ready to start rolling this. And I keep a little pressure on here and roll. If you wet your finger, whoops, it makes it easier to roll. I shove over. I want to keep this as tight as I can. Doesn't have to be super tight, because when you roll the shade up and down and when you get it back in your window, it'll tighten up nicely. But I want it as tight as I can get it. Make sure it's still in this. I just keep rolling till I have all my excess cord wound up. Okay, so now that you get that wound tight, we're ready to put things back together. So we're going to use this rod, and get my stuff out of the way. I'm going to put it through, and sometimes it's hard to get it through right over here. So if it is, you may have to twist a little bit. But I'm going to go ahead and tighten that up, twist that rod without bending the rod to tighten that up. Once I've got it through the first one, and this is nice and tight, I'm going to keep sliding it. The middle goes to the middle. This one, if you look on this end, there's a square that it's got to go through. So try to get your metal rod about the same angle. Pops right through. Now I'm going to take it through this one, and I'm going to wind this one up as tight as I can. Put this through there. It's way easier to do when you're not filming. And this goes, I don't know what these two things are for, but obviously they're for something that I don't know about, but you still have to run the metal bar between those. And then the last thing you do is put the metal bar back in the bracket that winds your shade up and down, and you may have to twist on the outside with that. We've got that all on. And then we are ready to put our head rail cover back on. And this is the end with the plastic tab. This is the end that slides out. So to do that, make sure that it doesn't clip your shades in the front, so kind of pick it up. I'm looking in the camera to see that it's in focus. Put it back on. And if you have it on right, it should slide right on once you get started. There we go. And I just kind of keep my hand down here to keep it out of the mini blind cords. Slide it on. Oops. Now, it's all slid on, and we're ready to cap our end back. Where's my cap? Okay, let me get my cap. And when you're putting the cap on, this little part that we had to push with the screwdriver to get off goes on the bottom. So you put it back on, so that little notch has got to go back in this hole. So to do that, you slide it in, push down on the notch, and you may have to hold the other end of the rail with one hand so it doesn't push all the mechanism that direction. There we go. And now it's latched right in there. So we're ready to hang this back in the window. We're going to put it in the opposite that we took it out. We'll put this up on the screw on this side. You have to have this lever up partially. If you don't, then your blind won't go up all the way. I don't know why, but I found that out. So I'm going to put it in here. We'll test it and see if it works. If it doesn't go in the mechanism hole, you may have to move this just a little bit. There, it's slid in. Popping it in. Close my window up. And hopefully it's the right length. Oops, I had my mechanism too far up. So I need to take it out and pull my mechanism to about here and then try it again. It's disengaged. I'll pull it down to about here. Try it in there. Re-engage it again. Put it back in. Just learn that trial and error where to hang this, so you may have to adjust that for yours. Hope the video helped you.